Oh, we're live. Hey, everybody, it's Ryder Timberlake with Getting to Know Elasticsearch. This is a series I've just spun off, mainly because I want to get acquainted with Elasticsearch, but also to share that journey with all of you and invite you to come along with me on it, should you wish to do so. Basically, I've come into this series knowing almost nothing about Elasticsearch, and I'm just going to be tinkering around and trying to get up to speed. If there's any generalizable relevance, it would surely be in that, in the breakneck pace at which our field moves, and the necessity of being able to quickly sort of get your bearings in a given framework and figure out what makes it tick, how to apply that things in your own projects, et cetera, et cetera. This makes it all sound very ambitious, and highfalutin would not be too strong a word. Basically, fundamentally, I don't know how Elasticsearch works, and I want to know how it works and be able to use it in some really basic fundamental ways. If there are, again, generalizable components of that which you can abstract out, apply into your day-to-day in other ways, then I'm very happy. That makes me pleased, and I feel that this is definitely, in that case, a good use of my time doing the recording in addition to doing the thing. And like a very inconsiderate person, I've left my phone on. All right, so last time when we were just getting spun up, just starting to talk about Elasticsearch from the basis as a person who knows basically nothing about it, Elasticsearch is a distributed searching-y, service-y kind of thing which runs in distributed fashion for high throughput and high reliability. It is built in Java. It is built on top of Lucene, which is a text searchy thing by Apache. No, I'm not going to Google anything right now. Yeah, and it supposedly makes the resource management side of things, as far as these constituent nodes in a cluster, and those nodes constituent indices, and the indices constituent shards, and the indices also constituent categories, constituent in a different way. We'll dive deeper into this, just sort of higher level, right? The clusters are the groups of servers, the nodes are the individual servers. Within those nodes, you're going to have indices which roughly correlate, as far as I understand so far, and I would be happy to be proven wrong in the near future, to tables in relational database land. These indices consisting, of course, of documents. This is a term in common, at the very least, with MongoDB. This NoSQL-y stuff is not something I've dived super deep into. The default behavior is for a index is you'll have 5 shards, and each of those shards will be assigned a replica shard. And those replica shards should live in separate nodes, again, for the high throughput, high reliability factor. I think that's really all I need to say so far. It does searchy kinds of things. We downloaded a 24 megabyte JSON file of the totally indexed works of Shakespeare, like line by line. Like character, everything. Maybe we'll take a look at that here in a little bit. But first, I should remember now what I feel like I've already forgotten to do, which is share my screen, or we're going to run into some trouble. Share my entire screen. Yes, all my secrets. Just give them to random people on the internet. So that's what I want. Ostensibly. Camdesk. Okay, good. I don't know why. It was coming up with just like a little white line under it earlier, and it's done that a number of times before, and I can't figure out what makes it happy versus unhappy. So, right, we'd gone ahead and we installed it through Brew, illuminating my ignorance both of the curl tarball and of Brew itself. I hope I said illuminating my ignorance, but also in some ways not eliminating, but perhaps mitigating that ignorance. All right. So we reinstalled Java because there was a recommended version of Java, and we went ahead and did that. Brew formula list. This is not going to be right. Lit. And lit is definitely not going to be right. Uh-huh. Brew formula list. No, you're going to look for, all right, brew formula. Oh my gosh. Brew list. All right. I'm guessing we don't have Elasticsearch. What happens if we just type Elasticsearch? I think that's my alias. It's been a minute. Brew install Elasticsearch. Updating homebrew. Folks, this doesn't necessarily mean anything. All we know is that we got homebrew to update. All right, great. Updated formula, great. Scala pack, MySQL cluster. It's showing me the downloaded thing. Elasticsearch, we're getting it. All right. Ah, cool. So yeah, we had gotten that more recent version of Java, and we're pulling down this most recent version of Elasticsearch. What do we intend to do with it? Maybe nothing. Maybe nothing for a little bit. We do need to sort of figure out what we want to do, how we want to do. But so far, I've been very happy with the Elasticsearch documentation. It does seem excellent so far. So we'll just see where it gets us. I tend to be skeptical until proven otherwise. Elasticsearch bin with PowerShell. Now we're ready to start a node and single cluster. That's cool. And then we can run the node. Well, all this stuff seems pretty useless to me. But I feel, I mean, let's be super clear what I mean by that. I just mean like, I don't like zoomed out, abstracted, like, oh, here's what you could do with it. Just like, I want to learn through dirty handed, diving in head first, blah, blah, blah. And an issue with that, of course, is that you can really get into the deep end if you haven't mastered the fundamentals of whatever it is which you happen to be diving in the deep end into. So unless I get really bored or fed up with, for now, I think we're just going to go step by step, continuing through the docs, right? Will be installed at program files, Elasticsearch with command prompt, blah, blah, blah. And now we're ready to start our node and single cluster. You're telling me to do that, but I feel like, oh, everybody's going to see. Everybody's going to see how much I don't know what I'm doing all the time. How much I don't know. First of all, I do not expect any of this to work because this is like run this thing and I have to actually be in a path which would make sense for this to work. So let's do the other thing. Let's let Brew do the heavy lifting. Brew, start, services, start, whatever that thing is called, Elasticsearch. Well, great. Let's do the fancy thing that makes it look like I know what I'm doing. All right. So, yeah, we've got a grep of Elasticsearch, which is the most recent thing that I did in our activities. So invariably, almost everyone has seen this before, but what I just did was do a PS aux to see all my processes, and I piped it into a grep so I could find Elasticsearch, that term in it. Yeah, oh, I feel like this is giving away too much of the secret sauce. All right, let's see here. Right, Elasticsearch. So we need to find Elasticsearch. No, I'm not going to show my env contents to the internet. Probably, possibly, there's no problem with that, but I feel like it might not be good. I'm not even certain if what I just let go by was good. I need to sort of think a little bit about how I want to handle that side of things. All right, Elasticsearch. Right, again, there's absolutely no reason that would work. If you are screaming at the screen right now, I'm sorry I can't hear you, but if you want to tell me what to do, you can, in fact, I believe, post a question on the Hangout. So if you're watching this, I believe there's probably a Hangout link in the YouTube, whatever, and you can probably post a question or something. And if you can't, post a comment on the video telling me I don't know what I'm talking about and I need to get my shit together. Okay, so, all right. Right now, I don't know what I'm doing, and I want to figure out where Elasticsearch lives on my local box. Huh? This is no, 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 no. You're just making a fool of yourself. All right. If you're just listening rather than watching, I just typed find Elasticsearch in Bash, which of course did nothing. So apparently this part, because sometimes it can be so hard to do running commentary and think at the same time, and also because sometimes we just get side swiped by our domain inexperience or stage fright or whatever it happens to be. Just don't find the things. So, I mean, the other angle, of course, is just to keep going and not worry about barfing my env onto the internet and other security concerns, which are also kind of running in my head, whether those might be relevant or not, because I just haven't sat down and done the analysis yet to feel confident in a given path there. So I might just, since I was complaining earlier about how little value I saw in actually running this, I might just give this a high level and move on. And I do think that's what I'm going to do. And we will circle back to doing actual stuff in Elasticsearch at some point, definitely. REST API, now that we have our node and cluster up and running, the next step is to understand how to communicate with it. Fortunately, Elasticsearch provides a very comprehensive and powerful REST API that you can use to interact with your cluster. Among the few things that can be done with the API are as follows: check your cluster node and index health, status, and statistics, administer your cluster node and index data and metadata, perform CRUD and search operations against your indices. Ooh, indexes. Execute advanced search operations such as paging, sorting, filtering, scripting, aggregations, and many others. Cluster health. Let's start with the basic health check, which we can use to see how our cluster is doing. I don't have a local cluster at the moment, which makes me sad, but wait a minute. I did brew services. We'll circle back here in a moment, because we already sort of have moved on a little bit. Yep, with curl, clicking the copy as curl link below, pasting it into a terminal, cat health $V, and the response epoch, blah, 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 timestamp, cluster, Elasticsearch, which again is the default. Yes, we did learn that last week. It's the default name for the cluster and the default name of the cluster that an initialized node will try to join node.total shards pre-reload init unassigned pending tasks mask task wait time active shards percent blah blah blah. Whenever we ask for the cluster health, we either get green, yellow, or red. Green means everything is good. Cluster is fully functional. Yellow means all data is available, but some replicas are not yet allocated. Cluster is still fully functional. And red means some data is not available for whatever reason. Note that even if a cluster is red, it is still partially functional. We'll continue to serve search requests from the available shards, but you likely need to fix it ASAP since you have missing data. As from the above response, we could see a total of 1 node and that we have 0 shards since we have no data in it yet. That makes sense. Note that since we're using the default cluster name Elasticsearch, and since Elasticsearch uses unicast network discovery by default to find other nodes on the same machine, it is possible that you could accidentally start up more than one node on your computer and have them all join a single cluster, like I was just talking about. In this scenario, you may see more than one node in the above response. We can also get a list of nodes in our cluster as follows. In the response, get cat nodes, $V again, and IP, blah, 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 RAM percent CPO load, load. Just a bunch of types of resource using. Here we can see our one node named Pibitisugaze, which is the single node that is currently in our cluster. List all indices. Now let's take a peek at our indices. You shouldn't have any. You don't have any data. Which simply means we have no indices yet in the cluster. I like the step-by-stepness of this. All right, now let's create an index name customer and then list all the indices again. This is going to bother me. Put customer pretty, get cat indices. Anyway, first command, you have a divergence between your docs and your routes. I find this disturbing. The first command creates the index name customer using the put verb. We simply append pretty to the end of the call to tell it to pre-print the JSON response, if any, in the response. Yellow open customer. Nafasa good tusa to some wubba to 67A. All right. Index and query document. Let's now put something into our customer index. Remember previously that in order to index a document, we must tell Elasticsearch which type in the index it should go to. Into the customer index external type. Okay, so this sub route. All right. So the customer index in this external is the type, like the category, whatever. Okay. One question mark pretty in the response. Index customer type ID shards. Why are all these underscores here in front? I'm just going to ask. From the above, we can see that a new customer document was successfully created inside the customer index in the external type. The document also has an internal ID of 1, which we specified at index time. It's important to note that Elasticsearch does not require you to explicitly create an index first before you can index documents into it. Oh, so there's an implicit already extant index. In the previous example, Elasticsearch will automatically create the customer index if it didn't already. Oh, no. As part of the putting in this document under an index, the index is automatically created. I wonder if this type is also automatically created. This is a put, which is, did we already do the document here? Okay. Oh, your put is updating the. All right, that does make sense. Your put is updating the index. Okay, so I was complaining in the last video about how there was a put before I'd seen any posts go in. And maybe that objection was still valid, but I think here it's fine for us to be going just to the put because we already created the index. In this put, we're actually calling on a subroute of the extant index. So, and then we're giving it this name, John Doe. Copies curl view in console. Well, that's kind of cool. So I got a curl on my clipboard. Nope, I do not. Copy is curl. Why? That's a pain. From the above, we can see that a new customer document was successfully created inside the customer index in the external type. The document also has an internal ID of 1. That's kind of what I was assuming was all these floops should be all these underscores, but it's important to note that Elasticsearch does not require you to explicitly create an index. Yep, we just talked about this. Now let's retrieve the document that we just indexed and the response found true. And then this bloop source is going to be name of John Doe, which is the payload that we gave the put call, which again we made to a subroute of the index, this external /1 question mark pretty, which I don't fully understand what's going on there, but I'm just following along. Higher level, we'll keep coming back through this. We'll keep cycling through this until we understand a little bit more what's going on with Elasticsearch. Now let's delete the index that we just created and then list all the indices again. Oh, that's going to bother me. It says indexes. Deletes /customer, yeah, question mark pretty, get cat indices, question mark v. And the response, health status, blah, 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 blah. Which means that the index was deleted successfully, and now we're back to where we started with nothing in our cluster, right? What did the response look like when we added something to the cluster the first time? It obviously must have looked We were looking at that a second ago. It had status green and health and all that stuff, and it listed some indices. Yeah, so it does look different. Put customer external 1, name John Doe, get customer external 1, delete customer. If we study the above commands carefully, we can actually see. And again, green means all the everything is hunky-dory, all our data is available, all our replica shards are up and running. Yellow, that everything is hunky-dory, except for the fact that our replica shards are not yet, for whatever reason, entirely up. And then red, meaning we don't have all our data and are in some impaired, reduced functionality status, which might still be giving us a lot. I think we could go red if we had any little tiny piece of data missing. Which instinctively makes me feel like I want more resolution there, but that's okay. This REST access pattern is so pervasive throughout all the API commands that if you can simply remember it, you will have a good head start at mastering Elasticsearch. Well, that sounds very promising. Just do REST routes, write your own client. I don't know. Elasticsearch provides data manipulation and search capabilities in near real time. By default, you can expect a 1-second delay, right? From the time you index up to delete your data until the time that it appears in your search results. From the time, right. 1 second from the time you change the data until that new data is available. There's an important distinction from other platforms like SQL, wherein data is immediately available after a transaction is completed. We've previously seen how we can index a single document. Let's recall that doc command again. And I suspect that has to do with propagating, like making sure everything is properly sharded and distributed across the cluster and such, because there's got to be some cost involved in that. I mean, I suppose they could have just closed that within the transaction and no. We've previously seen how we can index a single document. Let's recall that command again. Put customer external 1 pretty name Jane Doe. Again, the above will index the specified document in the customer index external type with the idea of 1 ID. Well, it'll actually create the document too, right? Because this document didn't exist before, right? We're doing this put, which is simultaneously updating the index, the type in the index, and adding this document, right? I'm not saying I'm right. I'm thinking out loud. The above changes the name of the document with the ID of 1 from Jane Doe to John Doe to Jane Doe. If, on the other hand, we use a different ID, a new document will be indexed, and the existing documents already in the index remains untouched. So are we assigning this ID to this document here? What does that pretty mean? What does this view in console get me? Oh, are you saying that's the default thingamajigger? It would be, yeah, that must be the default port it would be running on if I were running it locally. Type 601. When indexing, the ID part is optional. If not specified, Elasticsearch will generate a random ID and then use it to index the document. The actual ID Elasticsearch generates, or whatever we specified explicitly in the previous examples, is returned as part of the index API call. Oh. Oh. All right. So that's what that is just after the type, we have the opportunity to give it a /ID parameter, and then we invent the ID. So I assume if I were just not cognizant of what I was doing and I passed an existing ID, because I think that's what we just did here, right? Yeah, we did the put and we did this ID, which already existed in that updated document name from John Doe to Jane Doe. I sort of think I prefer to let Elasticsearch handle my IDs. Just saying. Not saying there's no use case for the other thing, just saying I think I probably prefer to let ES handle that. Updating documents. In addition to being able to index and replace documents, we can also update documents. Note, though, that Elasticsearch does not actually do in-place updates under the hood. Whenever we do an update, Elasticsearch deletes the old document and then indexes a new document with the update applied to it in one shot. Interesting. I wonder if that has to do with being friendly to all the different requests flying around your cluster at any given time, or this example shows how to update our previous document ID of 1 by changing the name field to Jane Doe and at the same time add an age field to it. Yeah. Why are we all of a sudden schlumping everything under this top level doc key? We were not doing that a second ago. I guarantee you we were not doing that a second ago. Yeah, we just have this name, and now all of a sudden we're schlumping everything under a doc key, and I don't like it. Updates can also be performed by using simple scripts. This example uses a script to increment the age by 5. External 1 update. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you were probably shouting at me, but I didn't pay attention to the fact that the HTTP action on this is different. We were doing puts before, and now we're doing a post, and we're doing it to the route, and then instead of right, and then slash, and then this blip update question mark pretty. What is that question mark pretty doing? It's gonna make me crazy. I assume I would. What does that have to do with? I wouldn't imagine you're specifying like the shape of every single payload you could get back if you hit the endpoint for a corresponding record, and every one you can either say, hey, return this record as pretty, or returned it. That would be an absurd waste, it seems. So I would assume it would have to do with prettying up the response that you get back when you hit that endpoint. I'm not actually seeing responses here, though, so maybe that is all that it is. In the above example, ctx.bloop source refers to the current source document that is about to be updated. Oh, thank you. That was all right. So you pass the post to the given record. All right. And then you say ctx.bloop source.property do whatever. Okay. Updates can only be performed on a single document at a time. In the future, Elasticsearch might provide the ability to update multiple documents given a query condition, like a SQL update where statement. Okay. Deleting a document. I'm getting bored. Deleting a document is fairly straightforward. This example shows how to delete our previous customer with the ID of 2. Right? Delete customer external 2. So under this customer index, this external type, we've got a 2, and we're going to get rid of it by sending this delete HTTP action to that endpoint. See the delete by query API. Interesting. To delete, so you can delete by query, but you can't update by query yet. It is worth noting it is much more efficient to delete a whole index instead of deleting all documents with the delete by query API. Batch processing. This is way more complicated than what I need to know right now. I mean, I don't need batch processing is my point, not what we've been looking at until now. In addition to being able to index, update, and delete individual in batches using the bulk API, bulk. This functionality is important in that it provides a very efficient mechanism to do multiple operations as fast as possible with as few network round trips as possible. Yay! As a quick example, the following call indexes 2 documents. That's actually proper use of the plural indexes, which in this case is being used as the third person singular conjugation of the verb to index. Two documents, ID 1, John Doe. I'm sorry, I probably sound like such an asshole. In one bulk operation, post customer external bloop bulk question mark. Pretty, index, right? Okay, so all right, so this index, that's interesting. Must be to just tell you that the data that follows is going to be this now. Hmm. Hmm. So is it just sequentially that I know what this data is going to? It has to be right next to it because that might be fine, but like knee jerk seems brittle. Uh, Seems like it'd be better to put it in a dictionary or something like you know what I'm saying. Put it in an object where it's clear, or like top level. Well, top level you can't be specific because you're hitting this bulk endpoint, right? But somewhere else. This example updates the first document ID of 1 and then deletes the second document ID of 2 in one bulk operation. Okay. Update, blah, 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 and then delete ID of 2. Yeah, that seems to be sequentially based. Highly likely. Note above that for the delete action, there's no corresponding source document after it, since delete only requires the ID of the document to be deleted. I wouldn't say corresponding source document after it. I would say corresponding like update target document or something to make it clear, because the source document is what is being deleted. And here in this update, I would not call this second thing a source document. I would say a target document, because that's what, or an update target document, whatever you want to call it, right? But I object to this wording. The bulk API does not fail due to failures in one of the actions. That's good. If a single action fails for whatever reason, it will continue to process the remainder of the actions after it. When the bulk API returns, it will provide a status for each action. Yes. Thank you for sensibly doing that. Sensibly, excellently. I praise you. Elasticsearch people, for building this cool thing that we all get to use, and I'm going to figure out how to use one of these days. Not today. Now that we've gotten a glimpse of the basics, let's try to work on a more realistic data set. Except that I'm still not running my local Elasticsearch, except I am in Brew somehow, but I don't know how to get at it. Maybe it would be a good time to take a second. I was complaining of getting bored a second ago. And I do have this problem both in my personal and professional life where I get tunnel vision on certain problems and I'm like progress oriented. It's like when you're kind of achievement obsessed. If you're like, playing whatever, I guess they're PS4s and Xbox Ones now. I haven't really been in that loop a little bit, but like when you're like, oh, I just gotta do the next quest or get the next achievement or whatever, and like you're narrowly scoping kind of the success criteria for the thing. So like I might narrowly scope the success criteria for today as like, let's get as far through the Elasticsearch docs as possible. And really my goal is not to get through the Elasticsearch docs. My goal is to learn how to use Elasticsearch, have some fun, hopefully put something out there which other people are going to find entertaining and informative, potentially neither. So, yeah, I would like to have a little play and flexibility here, and not try to just sort of back myself into a totally unnecessary tunnel while mixing my metaphors. And we'll wrap this up within the next 5 to 10 minutes. Because honestly, I think I may have already been going on for 25 minutes. Like maybe I'll hit 30 at 5:25. Don't know. What was I going to do? Using Elasticsearch Brew. I should be able to hit it somehow. Setting up Elasticsearch on your Mac with Brew, that's fine. I've been to this link before. It's, yeah, a guy with a great smile, and he's like, hey, here's my Elasticsearch stuff. How to start it. Here we go. Whoa. Say to use a removed brew services command. If services start Elasticsearch. I feel like that's what I did already. But if I did, it should both be in the console, and I should be able to do it. Yeah. So I did do brew services start Elasticsearch. I should get a failure here, and it should ask me to do restart. I could do restart. It's not likely to do anything. The problem is with my being able to access that service and know where it is and hit it, not with me thinking it's not started. We had already grepped our PSOX to verify that it's doing something there. Then to load Elasticsearch now, launch CTL, load. Is that what you're telling me? No, you don't tell me any of that. What the heck is launch CTL? Like if I ever am on any show and I'm like, what the heck is awk or what the heck is grep? Just I'm wanting to be as transparent as possible about the status of the knowledge up here. As transparent as I can be without completely ruining my credibility as ostensibly a software engineer in this industry. Service already loaded. Okay. Now how do I mess with it? All right, let's momentarily take a little detour. No, not my Gmail. Not on the. No. Oh, that was the worst. Oh, my heart's racing. I feel like I've put in a lot of work into this episode, and it would be a shame to lose it. All right, because I put my internet out for my email out for everyone on the internet to see. All right, Elasticsearch tutorial. Getting started. Elasticsearch 101. I tend to have bad luck with the 101s. They just, I don't tend to find great things. Downloading and running Elasticsearch, okay. Running Elasticsearch on Windows, sure. Running Elasticsearch on OS X in the bin folder. So everybody's telling me I've got to actually find what folder I installed it in and go from there. Somebody is screaming at the screen right now what folder I need to go look in, or that it's not going to be any problem if I just go search around for that in terms of like security. But yeah, so you've already gotten it started at this point, and you're going ahead and telling me how to use it, and I am just wanting to know. I've ostensibly started this thing. Let's do Elasticsearch in 5 minutes. What's that? Yep. And I get to hear again everybody tell me what Elasticsearch is, which is good. I like to hear a lot of different people's perspectives on the same thing. Elasticsearch in 5 minutes. This is what I was looking at. Installing and running. Really, I should be winding down because I want to take a couple minutes to review what I did today. Yep, installing and running. Yep, tarball, wget. Yep. CD Elasticsearch. I bet it's in my brew directory. Wanna look? It's probably fine. I don't know where my brew. Oh, I feel really silly. All right. Yeah. I'll look at that another time because I still have this security concern that is not put to rest in my mind, and I'm naturally a cautious person. Should see something like this in the terminal. By the way, if I ever do flagrantly violate and put out on the internet some security thing which should not be there, would you be a pal and let me know? I'd really appreciate it. That'd be super cool of you. Let's see here. Let's see here. La 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 la. 9200. That is not the 64 whatever that the open in console option on the Elasticsearch website was taking me to. Maybe it was failing then because I'm on a VPN and it doesn't. No, that wouldn't. I mean, they could have blocked where I am apparently appearing from. Whoa! Oh my gosh. Yep, that's fine. I'm gonna do these episodes, and every single one, it's gonna be like your updates failed. um. All right. All right. All right. Sample data set. Curl X post. I forget what that X is for, but I remember it's. Oh, is that like to explicitly specify the action? I thought so. Yeah, by default it'll do get, or you can do xget to specify. Works. All right. Yep. Curl localhost, do the get on that bloop cat indices. All right. All right. Let's figure out what we did today. So we are in the middle, at the very beginning, really, of a web mini series about Elasticsearch. We are trying to figure out what it is, how to use it, get some experience using it in some toy projects. Yeah, basically we just want to understand more about it. And I'm going to have to make some determination in the near future about, do I want this to be just like a first pass, which stays pretty surface level? Do I want to spend a couple episodes doing a toy project? Do I want the toy project to be a separate series? All these things which are really unimportant to think about when you're just doing something to learn a thing. But that's how my mind works, is couple steps down the road, but to my detriment, and often missing as a result of being here, sort of more immediate and crucial concerns. Yeah. So what did we do? We looked at Elasticsearch. We went through looking at the REST API. We went through and looked at sort of like some of the basic health stuff that it gives us back. So we looked at some of the put updating and such, and there are these types again. Oh, this is so incoherent what I'm saying, but there are these types, right? So you'll have an index, and then under that index, you'll have types, and you can do puts directly to the index, the type, and then do presumably question mark pretty, and then give it a payload, and it's gonna install that as a document under that category, under that index. You can do batch updating and stuff, and that seems to be sequentially tied, sequentially coupled, which is not to say that other things are not also sequentially coupled in different ways, but I just mean sequentially coupled in the sense that, like, you have the document that you want to be updated, and then you have what you want to update it as. At least this is for the batch updating piece. And they've got to be, it seems from what I'm seeing so far, without having the insight of directly interacting with the API today, that they've got to be right next to each other, adjacent. And you can, of course, do a delete. That doesn't require any subsequent blah, 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 because there's no target document. You're just blowing the thing away. Oh, and you can do you cannot do update by query, but you can do delete by query. It is apparently far more performant to just blow away the index as opposed to doing a delete by query. But and these indices, again, they're sharded by default. They're sharded. 5 shards is the default. Each one of those shards is going to have a replica shard. Those replica shards should live in different nodes. By default, nodes are going to connect to a cluster called Elasticsearch. By default, your basic Elasticsearch cluster is called Elasticsearch. If you don't otherwise specify what these nodes should be called or what other cluster they should connect to, you can easily put yourself in a situation where all of your nodes are going in the same cluster, which may not be what you want. I think that was the gotcha with that. What else? I don't know. We just kind of spent some time looking at stuff, looking at payloads, doing things. We got to see this cool health thing. We found out that, yeah, the green health means all your data is there. It's fully functional and replicated. Yellow means all your data is there, but it may not be, all the shards might not be replicated yet. And then red means your data is not complete. There is some way in which your data is lacking relative to what Elasticsearch knows your data's ideal state to be. Desired state, necessary state, perhaps. Ideal makes it seems a little too friffy. I don't know. So I feel like there's more to say. Let's just go back through this slowly. Just let's look at it backwards. And brew services start. Elasticsearch should be sufficient to do it. It appears that next time when I get into this, I just need to get into my brew casks maybe, or maybe just my brew formula, find that bin directory, spin up, ./Elasticsearch, spin it up that way. And I should get that default. Looks like it's something in there defaults to big man, and see that status scrolling by. And start to be able to mess with it. Yeah, we learned ctx.source, right? If you do the script key to a valid records route, and you can do the ctx.bloop source and then do some operations. Indexing, replacing documents. Yep. Put customer external to question mark pretty. Delete an index. Cat indices, health status, right? Because once you've blown that away, you've got nothing left in your cluster. So this must be the cluster health report. Yeah. Docs deleted, docs count. Pre-store size, UUID. What of the index? REST verb index type ID. If we study the above commands carefully, we can actually see a pattern of how we access data in Elasticsearch. That pattern can be summarized as follow: REST verb, and then the index, and then the type, and then the ID. Sounds good to me. Makes perfect sense. Next, and query a document. Put name John Doe in the response. All this bloops. Presumably, all these bloops are meaning that they are system supplied. But this type external, we did that by hitting this external route with this document, updating this type of this category with this explicit ID passed in as the ID for this document. Get customer external one pretty, index customer found true, source blah blah blah, version 1, ID 1, type external, source. So the conventions I know for those little blips, the single underscores, right? They tend to be like, this is unused. Maybe this is private. I thought that tended to be the dunder, the double underscore. Blah, 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 blah. If sometimes it seems I don't know what I'm doing, well, sometimes I don't, but the point I was going to make is that, like, if this single underscore is like widely used in, say, Java or .NET or something to mean approximately what it means here, then I would only say that my experience in Java and .NET is very limited. My main programming background is in Ruby, um, and it is recent in the scope of my life. Let's start with a basic health check, which we can use to see how our cluster is doing. We'll be using curl to do this. You can use any tool. I was a frustrated artist before, like for many, many years. And finally found something I can sort of channel my creative desires into. All right, so yeah, we're looking at this cluster health report again. Elasticsearch is up with a green status. Get cat nodes, question mark V. No, it's question mark V. What is that question mark V? Oh yeah, pbtzgz. That's not how I pronounced it the first time. Pbtzgz. Yeah, now that we have our node and cluster up and running, it's kind of fun going backwards like this. Yeah, so here we are. Here we were last time, right? The last thing we did in our last episode before we signed off was we did a brew cask reinstall Java to get the most recent JDK. And then we got that. And then we just brew installed Elasticsearch today and have not started it up recently, but just higher level and even some of the like specific REST endpoints and such available to us. We're sort of exploring that and just getting a feel for this ecosystem. We did go out and look at some tutorials briefly, but a lot of this, and I am not opposed to this at all, does seem to take for granted that we should have a local Elasticsearch cluster running on our machine, which I fully agree with. You know, I think we should be hand in hand doing the things in the trenches and reading the things. I mean, everything you read should ideally getting applied immediately, and that's not something. It's not something I did today. I'm okay with it. So, thanks very much for watching. I hope you got something out of it. I certainly did. And I'll keep making these, keep trudging along, figuring out how Elasticsearch works, and soon we will know more about how it works. I feel very confident in that assertion. Have a great one. Oh, this happened to me last time.